The rain softened to a quiet drizzle just moments before the funeral procession began, leaving the cemetery cloaked in a pale silver haze. Damp earth clung to polished shoes as mourners gathered under dark umbrellas, their whispers blending with the soft wind. At the center of it all rested the casket of Helena Whitmore, the only child of global tycoon Richard Whitmore. The official story was simple and devastating. Helena had passed away peacefully in her sleep, a Sudan loss. A closed chapter. Grief sat heavy on every face. Her mother stared into nothing, hollow and unmoving. Her father stood rigid, a powerful man reduced to silence. Friends clutched tissues, struggling to accept how life could vanish so quietly. No one expected what happened next. As the priest lifted his hand to deliver the final blessing, a figure burst through the stillness. A man in a faded neon-green sanitation uniform staggered forward, his boots sinking into the wet grass. His jacket was torn, his gloves were soaked, his breath was uneven. Rainwater dripped from his hair, as though he had run the entire way. His name was Mateo Cruz. Most people knew him only as the man who swept the streets before dawn, the one they passed without ever truly seeing. But now, every eye was locked onto him, as he raised a shaking hand and pointed toward the casket. "She's alive," he said, his voice cracking but loud enough to cut through the murmurs. "Helena is not dead." A wave of shock rippled through the crowd. Some gasped. Others scoffed. A few shook their heads in irritation. This was not the time for madness or disruption. Security stepped forward, but Mateo didn't retreat. His fear was visible, but something stronger held him in place: conviction. Richard Whitmore turned sharply, his grief flashing into anger. "This is a funeral," he snapped. "Remove him." Mateo swallowed hard, his hands trembling. "Please," he begged, "just listen to me." He was not a man used to speaking before the wealthy or powerful. He lived in small rooms, ate simple meals, and existed in the background of the city's noise. But Helena had seen him. For years, Mateo cleaned the same streets Helena walked while walking her dog. She smiled at him when others looked away. She asked his name. She thanked him. Once, when some teenagers mocked his uniform, she defended him without a moment's hesitation. Another time, he saw her quietly placing food near an alley for stray cats. To her, he was never invisible, and because of that, he noticed something others didn't. Mateo told them about the night he found Helena on a park bench, her skin cold, her breathing barely there. He called emergency services and stayed right beside her, holding her hand, as if his presence alone could anchor her to life. He remembered begging the paramedics to check again because her pulse felt like it was vanishing between beats. One medic muttered something about a rare condition, episodes where the body mimics death. But hospitals were busy, protocols were rushed. Mateo was just a cleaner. When doctors later declared her dead, he was dismissed. Told he misunderstood, told to go home. Yet he never forgot the way her fingers had twitched in his palm, a tiny, desperate signal that he refused to ignore. Standing there at the edge of the open grave, he spoke with tears, now streaking his face. He told them he had nothing to gain. No money. No recognition. He was there because he owed her his courage. Because kindness deserved loyalty. Because burying her without absolute certainty felt fundamentally wrong. The crowd grew quiet. Even the rain seemed to pause. The priest hesitated, then nodded, slowly. Despite protests from nervous relatives, the casket was reopened. Richard Whitmore, shaken by Mateo's unwavering certainty, raised his hand. "Do it," he said, his voice tight. The lid lifted. Helena lay peacefully inside, her face calm, her hair framing her cheeks as if she were merely asleep. Her mother sobbed softly, preparing for another wave of disappointment. Mateo stepped closer and asked for a mirror. It was placed just beneath Helena's nose. Seconds passed, then more. Just as despair began to creep back into the air, a faint fog brushed against the glass. Someone screamed. Doctors who were among the mourners rushed forward, a pulse barely there, but present was found. Chaos exploded as the somber cemetery turned into a frantic emergency scene. An ambulance screamed away, carrying Helena back from the very edge of death. Mateo stood alone, soaked and shaking, as the crowd dissolved around him. He didn't feel heroic, only hopeful. Hours later, in a hospital hallway buzzing with machines, Richard Whitmore found Mateo sitting on a metal bench, staring at the floor. Without a word, the billionaire sat beside him. He explained that Helena had entered a rare metabolic coma, one so deep it mimicked death itself. Mateo had saved her from an unthinkable fate. Richard wept openly, thanking the man no one had noticed before. Not with money, with humility. Days later, Helena woke up. Her first question was, why Mateo looked so worried. When she finally learned the truth, she cried and held his hands, promising him he would never be unseen again. Her miraculous survival spread through the city, not as a strange tale, but as a reminder that a person's humanity is measured not by wealth, but by heart. Mateo declined any riches, but accepted a role helping build the outreach programs Helena had always envisioned, feeding the hungry, training the overlooked, and restoring dignity to those on the margins. The man who was once ignored became a voice for thousands. And the world learned that sometimes heroes wear worn gloves and find the courage to speak when no one else dares. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.